the Swazzle Puppet Studio. I am Sean, and back there is Patrick. And today I wanted to come in here and show you how we trim our fur for puppet making. So these are some hands for a puppet we're making. Um, these are live glove hands. And believe it or not, there are fingers in there. You just can't really see them very well because they're not trimmed up. So I'm going to show you all the different things that we do to trim up fur like this. All right. So when it's all finished, it will look cool. All right. So for trimming puppet fur, here are a few things that you'll need. First, of course, you'll need whatever it is that you're trimming. So in this case, puppet hands. I'm going to be using this, which is a pet hair trimmer. The nice thing about the pet hair trimmers, they seem to work a lot better with synthetic fibers um, because synthetic fibers are a lot finer than, say, my hair. Although my hair is pretty fine and pretty gone. The next thing you'll need are some scissors, just regular scissors. I'm left-handed, so I'm using lefty scissors. Um, then you might even need some detail scissors for small detail cutting. And then eventually we'll get down to these. These are called thinning shears. And you can see the little teeth on those shears. What it does is it cuts not every single hair, but just a few. So something else you might find helpful. Now, these particular gloves were machine stitched. And you can kind of see in here that some of the fibers are still into the seam. So what you can actually do before you begin is I'm using an awl, which seems to work pretty well, to pull these fibers out. You can just basically get the awl under the fibers and then pull them out of the seam like that. And then once you've got the big bulky ones, you can come in with like a safety pin and pluck any remaining fibers out. We're not going to get every single fiber, although it is tempting to try and do that. You just won't do it. But you just want to get enough. And then once you start trimming, if there's a few fibers that you see are kind of folded into the seam, we can start to remove those. So the first thing I'm going to do when I'm trimming up the puppet fur, I'll trim the right glove since I'm left-handed, and I can keep it on my hand for to work. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come through with the scissors. And I'm just going to take some of the bulk off that I know that I'm not going to use. So I'll start with these regular scissors here. And I'm just going to just start trimming. By the way, this, if you want to, you could wear like a dust mask because some of these small fibers get everywhere. And like Anakin Skywalker said about sand, it's irritating. All right. By the way, I'm trying out a new microphone today. Make sure you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can. All right, so I'm just trimming, not like being too careful about it, not too concerned that these cuts are going to show. And also, as I trim this puppet hand, I want to keep in mind that I'm going to keep the arm long, and eventually we're going to fade to the shorter fur fibers near the fingers. So I'm just trimming off the bulk like this, all these loose fibers. Now I happen to know, now that I've said this, it won't be true, but let's see that from my experience, this fur tends to trim pretty well with a clipper. So that will be the next thing I do. But first, I'm just kind of getting it a general. You can already see the fingers starting to show a little more as I just take down those larger fibers. And I don't want to go too far. Like I want to think about the shape of it. I want it to be long, probably here. Maybe I'll make it even shorter on the palm, a little longer on top, shorter towards the tips of the fingers, longer as you get to the base of the hand. So you also want to think about the puppet that you're making and the story you're telling, and the character. All right, so I think that's good for general trimming. So let's do a little stuff with the clipper here. So I'm gonna be brave. I'm not using an attachment. I have noticed that whenever I use attachments, they have like 1 inch, 2 inch, and things like that. What I've noticed is it just hangs up on the fur and gets snagged. So that's why I just prefer to go with no attachment. With these pet hair trimmers, this little lever here, as you move it up, that kind of guard moves up and down. I've even noticed that when it's in the up position, it still snags. So I put on the lowest position. This is the one that would take my hair clean off. I should just do that and go viral. Pretend I did it accidentally. Um, so what I do is I put on the shortest and then I just work carefully like this. So I'm going to turn it on and I'm just going to start trimming carefully. I'm not pushing it down. I'm just pulling the fibers off. I'm working my way down slowly. That's going to be the intention. Because the thing is, with this fur, you can't undo it. It will not grow back. Unlike if you get a bad haircut at the salon, at least it will grow back. Well, in theory, until it stops growing back. There you go. All right, so I am using the hair trimmer. I remember the goal. The goal is to make sure that all of these fingers have definition. Okay. I want to give the fingers of this live hand puppet definition. This type of puppet is called a live hand puppet because what that means is instead of the hand being operated by a rod, there's like a stick coming out from the wrist, it'll be performed with someone's hand inside the glove, like so. Okay, always very fun to move your fingers around. All right, so again, we're giving these fingers definition. By the way, this fur cuts beautifully with this razor for sure. And thanks for the folks that have joined. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in. And if I happen to glance up, I'll try and answer them the best I can. Hopefully you all can hear me okay over the clipper. All right, so I'm trimming. And I've sort of given myself a marker in my mind as far as where I want to stop the cutting. And I think I kind of want it here. And when my hand is in there, that's kind of where the wrist is. Now, when the actual arm is attached for the puppet to make it a live hand, I think it'll be sewn somewhere around here. So I don't want it to be short up into that. I want it to be sort of before that. So again, we're using the pet hair trimmer. We're trimming this fur. And like I said, I'm going to make it a little shorter on the palm. But not too short, because once you go a certain uh, length, you cannot undo it. There's no undo um, there's no undo button in real life. And if there is, I would I could use it if you sometimes. All right. So this thing is taking off all these little long fibers. Now what's interesting about is this fur is multicolored. So what I mean is if you look up close, I don't know if it'll show, but the very tips are like black and then it gets lighter as it goes down. So as I trim, Might not be so obvious on this camera, but it does actually change the color of the fur, but it's pretty subtle. Some furs, it's a lot more obvious. So I think, let's see, because this is supposed to be a furry character, so it's not like I wanted to bring it all the way down to like fleece. So maybe the top of the hand is good. All right. Focus on the side of the fingers here. Now I want to try to avoid things like this where it kind of obviously stops. You kind of want to fade, do like a fade. Like all the kids are doing, do a fade. I feel like I could probably get my beauty license. I've trimmed so much fur. Become a beautician. That'll be my second career. All the things learned from puppetry, I'll just start applying it to real life. Probably a plastic surgeon too, as long as they're using needle and thread and fleece. All right, so you notice I'm working pretty slowly. I'm not just like grinding it straight down. And I'm doing that on purpose because I don't want to go all the way down to the backing necessarily. Um, and if I'm not careful, this clipper can take off a lot really quickly. All right. I'm also giving it a good shake, get the extra fibers off. I'm looking at it periodically to make sure it's looking the way I want it to look. Um, Also, I'm moving against the fibers. So the fibers are laying down in the direction of the fingers. And I'm moving against the fibers. If I move with the fibers, it also works really well. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Um, this fur is just really, this fur just wants to be trimmed. Not all fur is like that. Has to do with the fact that it's a very straight fur. Um, So the fibers are more like hair than it's not. It does not. Some furs are very textured, or kind of have more of almost like a more of a I don't know, like a finish on them. Where this is just pretty straightforward, straight hairs in the back. So actually, it seems to work no matter which direction I do the trimming. All right, so I'm working on the palm. I'm just gonna go like this. I think of all the things, the palm can be a little shorter. Again, with this, if you wanted to, you could wear a dust mask because these fibers, they get everywhere. In fact, we were making a puppet for a client, and we had to make like 100 of them, and the puppet was purple, and we had purple fibers in the workshop. Pretty much, we still have them. All right. So I think that's good for what I'm going to do with the clippers for now. I might come back and do the clippers, but as you can see, it's starting to actually look like a puppet hand. Just for for comparison, this is what we started with. So you can see it's starting to get a little more definition in there. So that's good. Next, I'm going to come through with let me get some of these fibers out of the way. Now, if I was really clever, I could use these to flock, put it in a flocking gun. All right, so I'll use a smaller pair of scissors, and I'm going to shape. I'm going to use these to really shape these fingers. I want to see like where's the separation need to be between the fingers to show. that they're not all just one paw, but actually individual fingers. So I'm using these detail scissors, and I'm kind of pretty much sculpting into the fur, sculpting in. I'm also looking for any long ones that are standing out. I will come through with the trimmer again and do a little kind of smooth it out a little bit because every time you cut with these scissors, you kind of see a line where the cut happened. And we want this to look like organic, so we don't want to see those, hard lines showing up. So we will eventually come through with a trimmer and then the thinning shears, which I'll show you how those work. And you'll see how you can really um, make those clipper lines, scissor lines, just disappear. Okay, shake off some fur, getting some more definition there. Now this finger, you notice, is a little thicker. That's because this is a 4-fingered puppet and 2 fingers are in here, a pinky and the other one next to it. So that's why it's a little thicker. That's fine. All right, trim some of this bulk off the palm. And this is when the artistic portion comes in. You start thinking, okay, what do I need to do to give it the appearance that I want? So I want it to be even thinner at the fingers. In fact, even if it almost comes down to backing at the tip of the fingers, that would be fine. Give that kind of interesting appearance. Kind of goes from thin, short to a little longer to full length. It's like a nice taper. All right, let's get between these fingers. Okay. All right. Something just popped into my mind. What if you're going live on the wrong account? Would that be crazy? We're not doing that, are we, Patrick? Okay, good. All right. Okay. Shaking off. Now you're starting to see it's looking more like a hand. Trimming a little more. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the trimmer. And this will kind of help even it out. Take away some of those clipper lines. I'm still just I'm not pushing it down to the backing. I'm still just kind of grazing the tips of the fibers. Because once if you nick it, that becomes your new height or length, rather, fiber length. Okay. All right, so I think I mentioned this before, but the fibers here, you can see where the machine stitching happened. Fibers on my nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to using my awl, and I'm just going to pluck those fibers out of the seam because you don't want that seam to show. All right, I got Patrick thinking about it. We're good. He was just checking to make sure we were streaming to the right YouTube account. All right, so I'm also using a safety pin to get some of these fibers out. Like so. So you see those long fibers that were still stuck in there? So I'm going to just take those scissors and trim them off. Like so. Make sure they're all matching the height. Okay. So I really want to separate the fingers in between. I mean, it's never going to be like this necessarily. We don't want that look, but I still want to do more to separate in between the fingers. So using this pin, pull up some of the long fibers. And I'm going to really get in here. You can't really see, but I'm just really getting in here and sculpting in between those fingers. Pull some of the long fibers out and trim. And really sculpting the fingers here. Okay. All right. I want this to be shorter. I'll go down even more. The temptation is to get into like a, I'm just get into the zone of cutting and go, ooh, too much. I don't think we're in that zone. Not yet. Okay. By the way, this work is very kind of fun. I wouldn't say mindless, but it's kind of meditative once you get into it. It's sort of also very satisfying, especially when you get those fibers up out of the seams. Very satisfying. And to see the end result is also very satisfying. Okay. 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 So things are looking pretty good here. Just as a reminder, this is where we started. This is one that's not trimmed compared to the one that is trimmed. So you can see it's starting to look more like a character hand and not just a piece of fur. Go back to the razor. So again, this is like a combination of using big scissors, small scissors, using the clipper. It's more art than science. It's all like I said, it's like sculpting. It's like you're sculpting with the fur. And how you trim the fur can make a big difference on the look of the character. We even made a puppet recently where we were trimming the fur purposely to look like feathers. So that was interesting. So how you trim the fur can really make a big difference depending upon the whatever you're making, the puppet, or I mean, this works for costumes or full walk around suits or mascots or whatever. You can use all these techniques. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Looking pretty good. All right, I still want to get in there in between these fingers. I'm doing it. Once I set the height, the length rather, the next one I can move with a little more, a little less caution, because I'll already know this is the length I'm going for. But now we're in this sort of like trying it out, see how it looks phase. What we like to say is every puppet, unless we're making it a second time, which is rare, every puppet we make is a prototype. And you lean on your years of puppet building experience to try to do it the best you can. But ultimately, every puppet we've made before, for the most part, has never been made before. Every puppet we made, for the most part, has never been made before. So you try stuff out, and hopefully it works. Sometimes it doesn't, and you keep working on it until it does. Let's get some fibers out of here. Okay. Come off these long fibers. I'm trimming up the palm here. Can't really see, but that's what I'm doing. The small scissors are my favorite for trimming fur. The big ones are great for, taking big swings. But really, when it comes to this more shaping, um, using a smaller pair of scissors is preferable. Okay. So now I'm going to use a different tool. These are called thinning shears, and they're used for cutting hair, but it's used when you don't want to cut everything. You want to just cut a few. So what's nice about this is all these lines that I have created with the scissors and the razor, this will just make those disappear. Creates a nice fade because it doesn't cut every single fiber. So it leaves some long, it cuts some short, and it will give this texture, but also it will hide the fact that we trim this, and will give it more of a organic appearance. And you can work with these pretty. Notice I'm being less cautious with this finishing touch than I was with the scissors, and that's because this isn't cutting every single fiber. It's like, think about it as this is like the smudge tool on Photoshop, if you will, or if you're blending, pastels, for example. Fibers are getting everywhere, just so you know. I don't know if you can see that at home, but this is like the scene in the Muppets Take Manhattan when they blow all of their feathers and fur into the fan to get into the office. That was the first one. Oh, that was the first Muppet movie. All right. I feel like they're always going into offices. That's right. Cloris Leachman at the desk to go see Orson Welles. That's the first Muppet movie. All right. So now I'm using the thinning shears to trim down this fur, but to really hide all the trim lines. So this is like the final. I mean, you could trim the whole thing with this, but because it only takes off a little bit at a time, it wouldn't be very efficient. Not that puppet building is necessarily efficient, ever. All right. And I continue to shake to get the old fibers off. It's like really what I want to do when this is all done is basically give it a teddy bear bath. Just blow it with a hair dryer, get all those loose fibers off. I still notice some fibers that are caught in the seam. See that long bit right there? Caught in the seam. And my reward is I get to snip that off. Yay! We do have a comment that says, for as much as someone on the watching this does a lot of work with fur, and now they're realizing they need to get a pair of these thinning shears. You can get these at any beauty supply store, probably online. I like to see them before I buy them. So you can just go to your local beauty supply. We're always going in there and buying these things that people use for hair care, and they're looking at us going like, I guess not using them on yourself. Of course, when we go in and buy wig tape, all of a sudden it all makes sense. All right. Trim, trim, trim. See a few more fibers in the seam. I'm going to pull out. You're not going to get every fiber. I think I'm telling myself that because it sure is tempting to go hunt down every single fiber you can and get it out of the seam. Oh, look at that. My reward is I get to trim those off. Bye-bye. All right, we're almost finished here. I'm going to do a few more passes with these thinning shears, and you can see, you know, where there was a like a line, you know, those lines are all disappearing because it really helps screw them up. And even notice as I'm trimming them, I'm kind of like going this way, I'm kind of going that way, I'm going this way. But I'm also kind of keeping my scissors angled like this as I go against so that it doesn't, so it kind of keeps that fade. So I'm always keeping in mind that I'm sculpting a three-dimensional shape. When I do it this way, I'm keeping it tilted that way. So obviously it's helpful if you can put the glove on. But sometimes you're trimming the muzzle of a puppet or the head, and you want to keep moving it around, making sure that you're looking at it three-dimensionally. You don't get just locked into one area. There are so many fibers. This fur in particular is a really fine fiber. All right. Luckily, I'm not allergic to acrylic, if that's even a thing. Okay, so I think I'm happy with the way this looks. Trim a little here of the detail. Once I said that, I saw a few things I can clean up. Come through with these shears. I really focus on like the in, you know, in between here, making sure that those are really trimmed down. And that will really help with not only the movement of the puppet, but also the visibility of the fingers themselves. So you can be pretty pretty aggressive when it comes to the trimming in between the fingers. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Okay. So here is our trimmed puppet hand. So just for reference, this is how it started. This is the untrimmed version of the puppet hand, and here is the trimmed version. So you can see what a difference. It's a little bit of a scissors, razor, and some thinning shears can make. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me in the Swazzle Puppet Studio. If you've got questions about fur, about puppet building, put them in the comments. We read the comments and we try to comment and answer any questions. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time in the Swazzle Puppet Studio. Goodbye.